Hello and welcome everyone to Pray Love podcast, hosted by myself, Holly Robinson, and the beautiful Deb Maybury, just above, below, beside, or wherever she is when you're watching this. And today on the show, we have a very special guest, Lynda Dyer, who you will also see in one of these boxes, one of these ways. Deb is going to introduce her because they are friends. And so, Deb, take it away.
Thanks, Holly. Okay, so there's so much that I could actually say about Lynda, so just know that this is the simplified version and still vast. I first met Lynda back in, I think it was 2007, and I still have to say, even to this very day, that one of the most enjoyable experiences I've ever had in traveling was with you planting trees on the side of a hill in Indonesia. It was one of the greatest experiences. And I know that as people were falling off and they planted their one tree, we were like, what's next? Another tree, another tree. And we just kept on going with our wonderful energy. Lynda was one of 58 people that were interviewed for the famous movie, The Secret. And she can tell you what happened with that one. Unfortunately, they picked some of the wrong people or didn't include my beautiful friend. She's cured herself of lupus. She's a certified professional trainer in NLP. She's an international speaker, a best-selling and award-winning author of books such as Healing Your Immune System Naturally, Age is an Attitude, which I totally support, Create Confident Kids, which Holly wants to know more about. And I think the latest one, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is Do, Be, and Have. And Lynda also, not surprisingly, is a transformational coach. And she's a machine. She's an ongoing work of art and a creator. And that's why we're calling the name of the show tonight, The Creative Source. Please welcome all the way from Australia, the one and only Lynda Dyer.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. It's just such a treat to be here, and yes, we've got some wonderful memories, Deb, of stuff we've done together, both in China, also in Indonesia, also in Canada, with the happiness talk that we did through the TEDx. And yes, it's just been an amazing relationship, and I really feel blessed because of it, so thank you.
Yeah,
and so lovely to meet you too, Holly, today. What a beautiful face you both have.
Lynda, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show. We're so excited to get chatting about the source of creativity, the creative source. Because as Deb just illustrated for everyone, actually she didn't say this, but she said this to me before. You've been writing a book a year for a number of years. Is that true?
Yes, I've written 12 books now. I promised my mum, who passed away 16 years ago, that I would write the book she never wrote, because it's just something she said to me as she was passing away, and that was, I never did write those books. And I said, I'll write them for you. And I promised her at her funeral that I would write the books she never wrote. I just didn't think I'd keep going. I didn't know how to start, and it was like a promise that I wanted to keep because I loved her dearly. And then through a few years of what do I do, I wrote a good grief book, which has gone around the world and any catastrophic event. And it was actually translated into Chinese as well to help the people through an earthquake. And so that's an amazing story in itself. And then a few years later, I was on a TV show, and it was actually a coaching client from Brussels that asked me to be interviewed on her show, because that was one of her goals after I did the training with her. And I became her first guest. So that was a real treat. And then she introduced me to Vicky Winterton, who is the publisher in America. And of course, I've been on TV over there for 5 years. Vicky introduced me to be parts of books. And then all of a sudden I got the courage to write my own book, and then a book a year, and it just flows now. It's like, I got it. And the last book Deb was saying was Do, Have, Be. It's actually the opposite. It's actually be, do, and have, which is exactly the strategy that I'm looking at people following, so we get the best from them.
Thank you for sharing that. That's so fascinating, and I loved like reading your bio and looking at all of these books that you've created, especially since we're talking tonight about the creative source. So one of the questions I have for you tonight is, and I'm sure Deb would love to second this question, I'm sure this is a question on her mind as well around this topic, is how do you get into your creative flow? How do you get in touch with that creative source? And I noticed you motioned to your third eye when you were talking about being. So maybe you can take us through that a little bit.
Yes, it took a while because I was in the conscious mind, the 4%. I believe that we've got like a 4% of consciousness and 96% subconscious, or that attraction to the universe, or the actual part of us that affects our body. And rather than have mind over matter, which is how I lived, because they're fighting with each other, we want to have the mind and the matter working together. And I had to learn that because I was swimming a mile a day, playing tennis for the university, doing 2 degrees in 2 years, hitchhiking across the Canadian Rockies at -35, dressing up as a man and going to England. I just kept doing. And the problem with that is that I'm draining my adrenals. So that 4% of my consciousness is in no way connected to universal source. Well, of course it is, but I don't get it. So I'm not asking the universe to help me do anything. I'm just doing. And I'm busy. Yeah. And that's what got me lupus, because when we're busy and we're not paying attention to the feeling part of our subconscious mind, which is 96% of us, we're not attending to that at all. And because the universe is talking to us through that all the time, I'm not listening. I'm getting cramps. I'm getting all the reminders. The universe is going to remind us conscious all the time about what we need to be doing. But I don't get that because nobody's taught me that. So when I get a cramp, I don't get that that's a calcium or magnesium deficiency. In the fitness industry, we're taught it's a salt problem. And then, of course, so I don't address it. And then I don't address the next thing, and I don't address the next thing. And the next thing, the universe says, you know what? I'm just going to put you in hospital. We'll see whether you want to follow this conscious mind thing anymore, because you're not listening. So right now, you're going to die if we don't do something about the way you're traveling. And I nearly did. And so I knew there was no future in that. And I decided to do something about it. And that's when I discovered personal development through a health program I was in. And the rest is history. I met Bob Proctor through his personal development, and I loved it. I just loved it. I wanted to learn more, always been fascinated in the way we function, both nutritionally, physically, and now this was the opportunity to learn mentally how we could change what we do to get a different result. And I had to make some massive changes, and it was hard. I'm not going to say it's easy. There were terror barriers like no tomorrow. You know, I remember being quiet for 4 days. Like who does that?
I have, but it's amazing to see people struggle in that environment, right? To go away to silent retreats and this type of thing. And, you know, listen, I am so guilty of doing this, that, and the other thing. And people often say, well, why are you doing so much? And aren't you tired and everything? But the thing is that I've always balanced, not always, but for a long time, I've also balanced that with this other part of myself that I haven't shared. That's actually what my new book is about, that I'm writing now. It's that other part that's gone on that has always kept me, I would say, somewhat stable or balanced. Because Lynda, I mean, you've done so many things. And I wanted to ask you to just say a little bit about how does this Australian gal, I know you came over into the States, and how did you end up like transversing across the Rockies?
Oh, well, I couldn't do the degrees I wanted to do in recreation management here in Australia. And the diploma that I did here was based on the University of Oregon course in Eugene, Oregon. And so there was an opportunity for us to then ask University of Oregon if we could come in and do the degrees. And that was one of one of my teachers said to me, and he was a Canadian. His name was Gordon Young, and he came out many, many years ago, and he wanted to bring the Olympics to Australia. And he loved me because of my work ethic. He gave me a project that he wanted to know what recreation and leisure was happening in other countries. And of course, I didn't know. So I went down to Canberra, which is a 3-hour drive in the car. I went around to all the embassies and asked them what they were doing and where does the money come from and blah. And then I drove back and I fell asleep at the wheel. I mean, it was such a big day. Wow. And then I had to write up this report. And then I just stood up and presented it because that's what I do. And he was going, like, I thought everyone was doing stuff like that, but no, they weren't. So he was notably impressed with what the level of what I'm prepared to go to get a result. And he said, I want you to go and get on, and this is your field. You need to go on and get degrees. So I finally got into the University of Oregon. And after my first degree, I needed a field work placement. And I don't know anyone in America to have a field work placement. But I knew a guy from Australia that had moved to Canada, to Saskatchewan, and he was running a swimming pool. And that gave me the opportunity. So I wrote to him and said, would you mind letting me do a field placement in your swimming pool where I can manage it for 2 weeks? And he said yes, but he didn't ask me how I was going to get there. So I went, okay. So I hitchhiked. So and then I said to a friend, do you want to come with me? Because it might be a bit lonely on my own. I've never hitchhiked before or since, but I went, I had a plastic jacket. I had one jumper that I bought in Scotland for £10. I still remember that. So I put that on. I really didn't know what cold was living in Australia. We buy a coat that gets dusty. And so off I went, and I'm hitchhiking, throwing the thumb out. I thought that's what you do, or you show a leg. No, you hitchhike. And we had no trouble being picked up because we were wearing yellow and green, and people wanted to talk about Australia the minute we got in. We got a drunk woman who was drinking out of her glove box. We got a guy that just got one of those automatic cars and was falling asleep at the wheel because he'd put his car on automatic. We went to Canada. We got to British Columbia, and there's a big sign and it says, no hitchhiking here. Oh, so we moved a meter away and we said, well, maybe we can hitchhike here. So so we put our thumb out and we got a few little rides here and there. And then one of the coldest places I remember was a place called Sunnyvale. That's why I remember it, because it was so opposite to the name. We saw fish swimming uphill, and that was really weird. And then we saw a truck came along, and he said he picked us up because he thought my nose was so red I had frostbite, and he thought my friend's thumb was out so far that she was going to grab the truck anyway. So he picked us up and put our stuff in the back of his car, which it all froze, and put us in the front seat. He had no heating, like what the? And so we were fighting over his dog to keep us warm. And he had to stop because there was an avalanche in the Canadian Rockies tunnel.
Typical.
And he's getting out there with a match to see what the level of his petrol was. And I'm going, that may not be the best idea. So anyway, eventually we got through that tunnel and he took us 800 kilometers. He was surprising his mother for Christmas. So it was going to be my first white Christmas. We left on the Friday and we had to be in Regina, Saskatchewan at 7:30 on the Monday night, and we got there at 7 p.m. And we walked into my friend's house and he said, oh my gosh, how did you get here? And I said, oh, I just hitchhiked. And he fainted. I said, well, you asked me to come, you just didn't ask me how I was going to get here. I'm a student, we don't have money.
Funny. Thanks for sharing this story. Holly, what kind of questions do you have for Lynda?
Okay, I have lots, but the first one I'm going to ask is, okay, so I took a quote off. I can't remember where I took it off of, but it's a quote that you said somewhere on your website or in a piece of work that you did. And this quote is, first you must reflect within to grow yourself and develop your self-image before you can better the performance of your business. And I totally agree with this. The quote on my website for spiritual psychotherapy is transform your life by healing the relationship with you and you. And so
Yes.
this totally resonated with me. And so my question around that is, why is it so important, in your opinion, to study yourself?
It's extremely important because when we were kids growing up, it wasn't about you, it was about everybody else and how you can help them. And so that's why the Be, Do, Have was developed in the book, because we were taught to do, the work ethic, so you could have the things. And then the Be was because everyone else, so you could be more according to others. And so that's how I lived my life. I mean, I had the house of the dreams. I had the husband, the son, the pool, the boat, the cars. I had it all, but I wasn't happy. And I didn't feel good about me. I was happy, but I didn't really feel good about me. I still didn't feel like I was anybody or anything. And I was just collecting stuff. And when people would clap me after I did a talk, I would cry and turn my back on them and tell them to sit down. I had no concept of them needing to do that, that I was worth that. So I had to learn. And then when people valued me enough to be filmed for The Secret, and other people thought so much of me, but I didn't think much of me. So it dawned on me that I better really start to study me. How do I function, and what do I need to do to feel better about me? Because the law of attraction says that you need to put out this beautiful energy and you will attract everything to you from what you're putting out. So if I'm sick with lupus, if I'm sick with an autoimmune disease, I've attracted that. I've burnt my adrenals to the point where I can't function, and there's no future in that. So it's about time I went to study me and study how can I be a better version of who I am, and that will bring me the wellness. It will also bring me happiness. It will also allow me to understand how I can function differently. What can I do differently? What can I do better? What can I let go of that I'm presently holding on to? Like the limiting beliefs, the I don't feel good enough. That's a clear limiting belief. It's the number one limiting belief in the world by most people. How sad is that? So once we let that go and learn how to let that go, and I couldn't wait. So through nutrition, through sports and fitness, I studied the body. Through nutrition, I studied the health. And I've always fascinated in how we function. And so then moving into the nutrition field, and the personal development coach was Bob Proctor, I started to study, and I became more interested in what Bob Proctor was doing about the mind rather than your nutrition, because I had a good concept of that growing up on a farm and what have you. So the personal development stuff then really resonated with me, and I started to learn it to the point where I became his number one facilitator around the Asia Pacific region. And then I asked the universe, what do I do to get further? And that was NLP, the neuro-linguistic programming.
Mm-hmm. And in fact, after we had originally met, then you decided to do a session in China. Yeah. And I thought, fabulous. I get to see China and I get to see Lynda. So I signed up for that. And I think I spent 2 weeks. It was
you did.
2 weeks in China with you and a few other people, and had a wonderful experience. And one of the things I'd like you to share, given the topic, creative source, is it's interesting how the universe lines things up in our world. And you had written your book, Good Grief. Maybe you could share a little bit of where that came from, and how writing something for one reason turned into this huge mission and opportunity, and just gift that you gave to someone.
It's such a beautiful story. It's like I wrote that book because I lost 6 people in 6 months. And I didn't know how the hell I was going to get through it. How do you get through that? Like, I lost my dog, who was my daughter. I lost my mum, who was my bestest friend. I lost my business partner. I lost a doctor that I was lecturing with, that I just adored, and he adored him, and his wife and little kids just adored me. And we were starting to do things together and share our knowledge with the world about health. And he came from a doctor's perspective. I came from an alternative. And it was just such a gift made in heaven, I thought. And then it all died. Everything just died, you know, and I thought, how do you get through that? So one day I was walking to the tennis court and I was hitting a ball against a wall. And on that day I decided I wasn't going to stop until I hit over 200 balls. And I hit 222. And a man came to me and said, I want you to play in the Masters tennis. And I said, wow, I don't need to play in the Masters tennis, but thank you for offering. Today I've reached my goal. I must be over lupus, because that was my goal. And then the universe just clearly said to me, I got this message. It was so clear. Your dog is with your mum. And I went, why didn't you tell me you needed my dog to be with my mum? I knew they loved each other. And so I ran home and I was crying and laughing, and the universe was talking to me the whole time, and it was my dog sending me a message. And I sat down by the computer when I got home and I'm still crying and laughing. And I wrote that book, and it wasn't me. It was my dog. It was giving the world a message that, you know, don't fret the small stuff. Stop doting on the grief and just dote on what was it like when we were together. We had the most amazing time. And I told the dog story right through the book, but at the bottom of every page, it's, you can do this. You know, you can do this. You know, you don't sweat on the gap that I leave behind. Just remember the good times. Remember when I was with you. And so that book, then when I went to China in 2008 to teach Master Prac, and then I was invited back on a few occasions. In May 2008, there was an earthquake, and I flew into China, and all of a sudden, that book, it was like, I've got to get it translated. I'm here for a reason, and I couldn't let it go. You talk about the universe just picked me up, and I had this goal in my gut, and it was like a baby, and I couldn't let it go. And it was the universe saying, you've got to be a part of this earthquake repair. And I'm going, what the? And I'm reading the bottom of TV sets that are saying things like, you know, we need people, we need coaches, we need people that can help. And I've got this class of students from all over the world, like when you were there, from Canada and America and Germany and Australia and China. And I'm saying to them, I'm going to the earthquake zone. We have to help, because I knew what happens. I knew from a physical fitness point of view about the corticosteroids, and how if all these people that are stressed have those corticosteroids running around their body, they're going to have so many diseases. They're not going to be able to function. China's going to be a mess. I've got to help. And I was like, and one lady in the class goes, how can you help? You don't even speak a word of Chinese. And I said, what? Why is that a problem? I had no concept of why that was going to be a problem. And I said, it's really interesting that you think that would stop me. And so we, cut a long story short, we got that book translated. We worked in China. I did lectures, and all the money got into an envelope. We translated the book over there. We had the graphic designer from Australia send the copies over. This lady Hong, this dear friend of mine, who spoke obviously Chinese and Australian, another version of English. She translated the book until 2 a.m. And here we are 3 weeks later going up to the earthquake zone. And it's a beautiful story, because it was so universally led. It was like I'm just being gifted by this bubble around me that's leading me. And the whole thing was around faith. And at the beginning of that year, I had set 2 goals. And one of them was to have a charity I could get my teeth stuck into. I think I just found one. And secondly was to have an international business. I had no idea what was going to come after this, but both of those goals were met. And we're talking May. It wasn't even June yet. So here we are in the earthquake zones of China. And whenever these girls who came with me said, you know what, this isn't going to, whoop, next. I'd cut them short. They weren't allowed to say why something couldn't work. I'd say a teaspoon of fear removes faith. So next, say next, go back to faith, believe that we can, because that's all I did. I was totally in belief that we could make this happen. And so, you know, we're in this hotel, there's one person that we've arranged to meet, and that's all. At 3:00 in the afternoon, we give her the book, and she says, you know what, and the next day I said, girls, you better be ready at 9:30, there's going to be a driver and a car. And of course, that's exactly what happened. And they said, how are you doing this? And I said, I don't know. It's just, just go with me, go with the flow. And it's happening. And we went to the earthquake zone. And even in the car, one of the girls was saying, we're never going to get through the Chinese army. And I said, stop, next. Because that energy flows. And so I want you to send out only energy that is going to be positive and full of faith and with all the reasons of why we can. And then this guy from the army, he's at the front of the car and he's flipping through that little good grief book. And he's thinking, and these girls, and I'm going, faith, sending out good energy. We're getting through this. I wasn't fearful of the Chinese army. I wasn't fearful of anything. I was so universally led. And he comes around. He hops in the front seat of the car, passenger seat. He says to the driver, go. He turns around to us and he said, we're going to the earthquake zone and I'm going to get into serious trouble. But I'm taking you to the earthquake zone. And he took us to the earthquake zone. And that was the most amazing experience. I will never, ever forget that. And I met children up there that were 100 children out of 2,000 because the rest had died. They were wiping the tears off teachers' eyes. It was the most amazing experience. And I gave them these books and I said, this is the present. This is the first day of the rest of your life. And this is your present. This is your birthday, your new birth. And we brought cakes that looked like the Olympics. And we started throwing cake at each other because I couldn't stop crying. The whole thing had got to me. And one of the teachers stood up and said, you will never be given this chance again. He said, I want you to grab some cake to all the kids and throw it at a policeman, at an army man, at a teacher, throw the cake. So they did. And he said, you'll never be able to do this again, but right now, today, you can do this. And it was to change the state of all of us. And in the front row of these kids was this little girl. And I projected these thoughts onto her. And I said, I don't know why you survived. All I know is that you're going to do amazing work for China one day. And I didn't say it. It was a thought. And she left the line and came over and hugged me. Woo! And I find even today, because I'm right there, I can see it. And it's just a gift of how much we've got that we can do that. That was a thought. And this girl was hugging me, and I'd love to have known who she was and who she's going to become in the future, because it was so real and I've never forgotten. She taught me so much. And that whole experience, I was then asked to go to Hong Kong, and this guy put me in a magazine. It was a 2-page article on all the work I did and what we did in that earthquake. And all of a sudden, another goal was met. It was, I've now got an international business. It was an international magazine. Phenomenal event.
It's a beautiful story. Thanks for sharing it. And, and I've heard you say it the number of times, and every time it's just so beautiful, because it is, you're literally right there in that moment again and sharing something so incredibly precious. So thanks for sharing that. Holly, you must have I know.
That story was so touching, Lynda. Thank you so much for sharing that with us and our listeners. I'm sure everyone will be really moved by that beautiful story. And what an amazing example of lining up with the universe, like being in the flow and being of service, and then the backing that comes from that. Like I always say this to people, like when we're in a place of having when we hold this highest intention that is, in my opinion, to be of service to the highest well-being of all, that's the universe's intention. So if we are holding that intention, we're thinking the thoughts of the universe, and so then the universe comes and give us all the power we need to fulfill that act of service. So thank you so much for sharing that, because that just like validates the feelings that I have around that topic. And I love this energy that you bring to people of like faith and trust. And I'm so glad that you're a coach, because it's totally what you're meant to be. Like based on everything you just said, like if I didn't know anything else about you, just that level of trust in the universe, like that to me represents like a very strong crown chakra. That's like your, maybe you know about the chakra. It's like your channel, your connection with all things. And I can feel that so strongly with you with everything you just said. So allowing others to be in that space and holding that space for them of trusting in themselves and trusting in their gifts and in their dreams, like that's what coaching is all about. And so I have a question around that. So what are the strategies that you used with people or in your own life to break through the blocks to letting your inner magnificence shine out to the world, to benefit all, to be of service to all?
So I use a myriad of tools, and one of those tools is called anchoring, and it's about thinking of positive things, going back and trusting your subconscious mind to come up with a time where you were totally happy, or a time when you were totally confident, or a time when you were laughing out loud or falling down laughing, or being totally inspired or motivated, all those things. And you think of those things, and one at a time you stack them, what we call stacking on an ankle. An anchor. And the anchor, well, you can actually use your ankle, but it would be difficult to hide it when you go to touch it. So on a knuckle, you can anchor. See, we have anchors every day in our life, and the sun is one anchor. For most people, it's a beautiful thing. For other people, it could be, oh, I'm going to get burnt again today, or it's way too hot, or, everything's an anchor. We've got the moon is an anchor, and the dark is an anchor, the light is an anchor. So we've got natural anchors that happen every day in our life. A traffic light is an anchor. The phone ringing is an anchor. So we can set our own anchors, our positive anchors of intent on our knuckle. And those days where we're not feeling totally good about us, we can press that knuckle because we're in control of us. We are in control of us. No one can affect you without your consent. So when you allow other people to affect you, you're disempowered to those people, things, or events. So the idea is for you to put your big girls' undies on or your big boys' undies on and take your life back and be empowered, be in control of you. And I know it's a tough job, and you can do it. And when you do it, you're totally empowered to take those gifts that the universe is going to offer you. When you are in that space, that's when the universe says, okay, she's ready for me to pick up and go with and do whatever it is that she wants to do or he wants to do. And that's when the universe is going to start to, the universe is supporting us all the time. It's just that quite often we're not listening because it's like water off a polished car. It just flicks off because we're in this 4% of consciousness that tells us to run and go get that and go get that. But our 96% of our subconscious feeling that's totally connected with universal energy is going in another direction. Because that's where our beliefs that we don't believe and that we're all those things we were told we're not good enough, etc. They're going that way. So it's like this. I really want to do it. I can't. I really want to do it. I can't. And so we want to get rid of that controversy that's going on in our subconscious mind and start believing that we can. And when we start releasing, so I use a matrix therapies, and I help people release through a matrix therapies. If we had time, I would do one for you, maybe another day. But we actually can release limiting beliefs, negative emotions, grief, sadness, all that stuff through this matrix therapies. It allows you to go back into the very first time something may have happened. The subconscious mind knows everything. So it will be able to know where that is, and then to find the resources that you need to be able to come forward and feel very differently today. The common expression of my clients would be, I feel lighter. Because quite often as we walk forward, we've gathered all this stuff in a backpack. And we're carrying that on our back. And so we're doing 2 steps forward and 2 or 3 steps back, and 2 steps forward and then 2 or 3 steps back. So when we start to release the load, and my job as a coach is not to do that for you. My job is to undo the zip. Your job is to drop the rock. It could be a pebble, it could be a boulder. And I'll tell and the subconscious mind, one of the prime directives of our subconscious mind is to prepare you for releasing, but also to hold things in until you're ready. So if I've got lupus, I'm not about to drop rocks because it could really affect my immune system to a deficit. So little things will be released first, and then all of a sudden the subconscious mind will say, you're ready for this one, girlfriend. And so you drop the rock, and wow. And you know what? Your health changes. Everything changes. Because from the heart up, we store the emotion of anger. And so all these neck problems and shoulder problems and all that sort of stuff dissipate when we release the anger. And from the chest across, we store the emotions of grief and sadness and guilt. And so when we release those emotions, I haven't had a puffer in 30 years. Because when you release those emotions, the health of that area. So imagine people with breast cancer and bronchitis and heart disease and all the asthma. Yeah. Once we release those emotions, that area starts to feel well and healthy. And then from the heart down, you've got fear. And of course, 97% of diseases stem from the gut, which is where we hold our fear. And of course, lupus is fear-based. So I had to let go of my fear, the fear of not being good enough, of not being able to do it, of not, that I don't measure up, that all that is fear-based. And of course it works like, from the hips, that inability to move forward. So it all relates. And so once you start releasing, you just feel so much lighter that you can almost like run into anything that you want to do because you haven't got the backpack holding you back. It's just profound.
Absolutely. I love everything you just shared. That just reminds me of all of the research I've ever done on somatic inquiry, which is something I love to incorporate in my practice, and to look at everything you just said about like the symbolic nature of the physical issues. Like I know Deb will know this in our course. Deb and I actually met at school. We were taking we did a program called Spiritual Psychotherapy, and body work was a big component in this version of therapy that we took, or of education that we took. And we read this book called Your Body Speaks to Your Mind, and I'm constantly referring back to it. And again, like I think Louise Hay has the other one, You Can Heal Your Life, and it talks about the symbolic nature behind all these things. So thank you for sharing all that. That's so great. And I love that you had that you have that level of self understanding and self-reflection to understand what the root of what was going on for you at the time when you had lupus was, and to be able to clear that must have been so empowering and such a great example to then bring forward to clients and people that you're helping. So
well, that's right. That's why I wrote my books, to share that, because that's why I think the universe gave it to me so early, because it knew I would help myself get through it, and then I'd be able to share that with others. And I met one other lady in Mexico just recently at a book awards, and she also had lupus and also took 14 years. to cure herself. And people say, that's a long time. And I'm saying, compared to what? I would have been dead. What's a long time? Because you're gradually getting better, but we don't know what we're doing. We're experimenting as we go along, but the learnings were profound. And so by writing the book, I was able to tap into the research that was present, as well as my own research that I did to get well, and then to say, guys, if I can do it, you can do this. And the last 3 chapters of all my books is on personal development, the power of the mind. That what if you can make a decision to change right now, today, that you can decide to be different, that you can believe that you can start acting on it, because I think believe and action rotate. And that once you start believing, you start to act, and the more you act, the more you believe. And I don't think, and that's exactly what happened when I flew into China. I couldn't let this thing go, because I started to believe that I could be a part of it, and I started acting on it. And the more I believed, the more I acted. And it goes all the way back to a networking event for a breakfast one day, where a guy came in and he was a clairvoyant for business. And he said, who'd like a little 5-minute session afterwards? And I went, doing. And I went over and he said, oh, you've got so much energy. Oh, you've got so much energy. And anyway, to cut a long story short, he said, you're going to be the next Mother Teresa. And I cracked up. And he said, who do you think Mother Teresa is? And I said, an angelic Catholic woman. I said, I'm neither angelic nor am I Catholic. And he said, she was quite the contrary. She was just like you. She wanted nothing but positivity. She wanted to fight for good causes. And she wanted great things to be done in the world. And then I'm up in that earthquake area of China, and I'm handing out the book and the cakes, and I've got police and army around me, and I'm going, oh my God, this is so Mother Teresa-like. So it's really interesting that, things that come to you and you go, whoa. And then they happen and you go, okay, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
That's such great awareness, because a lot of people pass those things off to coincidence, but you actually see the synchronicity, which I think is amazing. That's one of my favorite qualities in people, is people that have that open crown chakra and that see the connection of all things, because that's just really close to my heart. Thank you for sharing all of that. Really
Lynda, I just want you to, if you could, just share where our audience can find you and learn more about you.
Yes, my website's mindpowerglobal.com.au for Australia, because another guy took the Mind Power Global and decided to set it up in Hong Kong. So it's mindpowerglobal.com.au. And when you go on there, you will see the NLP programs that I run all around the world, and the coaching that I can do by Skype or through this beautiful technical system. There's lots of podcasts and webinars, and I'm on quite a few talks that you can see. The TED Talk is on there. So you can watch a 15-minute and a show on happiness, being happy. And then you can have a look at all my books. There's 12 books there that you can buy from Amazon, or you can contact me and see if you want a hard copy. But yeah, there's it's an older website because I'm an older person. And however, I'm so busy doing what I'm doing that it just hasn't been something that I'm paying that much attention to. There's a lot of things coming up too, so just keep open to, if you put your name and email address on the front of the website, you'll automatically get my newsletter. I write about health and personal development all the time. And I'm doing a free podcast, a Zoom coming up on releasing anxiety and stress because of the COVID-19, and how people are going to come out, or maybe not want to come out, feeling a bit anxious or conscious of, what do they do now? I'd like to help you release that, so that you feel that you can come out, and whoever you are, this new you will be amazing, and that you can achieve whatever it is you want to achieve.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I was actually going to ask you a question similar to what you just said. in terms of what you are doing currently. So you pretty much answered that. Holly, do you have another question that you would like to ask?
I have lots of questions.
I know. It's more of a statement, Holly. Why don't you ask another question?
Okay, I have a couple questions, but I'll ask this one just in case it goes all the way till the end, because this is the one that I really want to ask you for tonight. What, Lynda, would you like to share with our listeners about creativity? What's like one or two very impactful things that you know about it, about tapping into that creative channel?
Yeah. Well, when I was younger, I used to say, oh my God, I haven't got a creative bone in my body. I used to say that a lot because I didn't think I was creative. However, creativity is such a different thing for me in this day and age. Creativity is taking the thoughts that come to me and doing something with them, and having the ability, because obviously I get asked by a lot of people to do a lot of things, and having that ability to say, is that something I would love to do? And if the answer is no, then I'll say no. I have my big girl's undies on now, and I am in charge of me, and I'll make that statement, because then I'm not going to be my creative self by doing that. And then I'll look at what would I love to do, and I'll go and do that, because then I can be my creative self. Creativity is about you being connected to universal source and being guided as to what that next project is, and trusting that you can do that. And that's what I teach people through coaching, is sometimes, like the lady I'm coaching presently, is it's work, 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 because we come from that work ethic. And yes, I was one of those people. Yeah, I got lupus doing that. It doesn't work. It's about, we don't have to keep working to be somebody. What we want to do is embrace the fact that we are already somebody. The universe, there was 1 billion or so sperm. And you survived. You survived. So you're already a creator that was created for this planet. What are we doing? Yeah. Joel Bowles says, I love his quote, that you're amazing. You're already amazing. And so what we need to do is learn how to be more amazing. And so I just, when I learned that, it was like, what are we doing? We need to step up, and we need to think about, what was it that the creator put me on the planet to create? And so let's go do that. And if it means writing a book, then I need to create time for that. And to create time for that, I can still coach, I can train, which I love doing, and I need to let go of the other stuff. Yeah, so my sports camps got sold, my this got sold, my that, and I'm just doing what I absolutely love. And it's not about doing. It's about doing what you love so that you can be that best version of you, and that you'll do it at a totally different level. And you'll have a lot more things attracted to you. Roger Hamilton once said, be the wharf and the ships will come to you. I love that. You don't have to run around and do this and do that and do this. Once you are the best version of you, once you've created the best version of you, mind you, the creator already did. Just get out of your own way. Right. Once you realize that you are the best version of you, then work on you. Be the creator of you. Bring out that brilliance. And then be that wharf and let the ships come to you. The work will come to you. You don't have to run around getting work. It will come to you because of the law of attraction. Whether you believe it or not, it works. So you will attract everything you need to attract to you according to the energy you're putting out.
That's so true. It's so true. And isn't it interesting, you know, in all honesty, Holly and I are being a little bit quiet in a sense, but we kind of are three characters here this evening that all sort of rev at the same energetic level. I was just sitting here, you know, and just reflecting on the way I've been with you, Lynda, and our relationship has been whenever we get together, and it's like that. And then obviously with Holly, it's the same thing. There's so much creativity and support and just sharing that energy. And when we converse, we're doing that with something that we love. Like, we're not talking about things that are distractions in our life. It always comes to the things that we enjoy doing. So I have one more question. We only have about 5 minutes here. Well, maybe 3 and a bit. What do you say to the person who's actually listening to and responding to the naysayer by not owning that creative part of themselves? And I know you sort of said it, but I mean, what specifically would be 1 or 2 coaching tips that you would say to somebody that just can't get over that part of their brain that keeps sending them the negativity?
Okay, so I first would ask, what's the purpose? What's the purpose of taking on the crap? There's always a purpose. So are you going to get more attention by taking on that? So now I put my bitchy pants on and I get bitchy. Not really. But it's about what purpose do you have of not believing in who you are when the universe allowed you to be born from 1,000 or 1 billion sperm? What purpose do you have of not being the best version of you? Because your socialization process has guided you to think that you're not good enough or you may not be enough, and you can let that go anytime you want. If we look to our past, it's not really our reality. It's a perception of our reality. So you don't have to take it with you. What happened to you up to a second ago is irrelevant to what's going to happen in your future. And if you look at your future, it's also only a perception of your reality. It's not real. It's a perception of your reality. So all you have is now. Right now, you can make a choice to find out all about you and take away that thing, that voice in your head that's mum and or dad saying that's selfish. It's self-centered. They are very different things. Selfish is when you do it in spite of someone else. Self-centered is absolutely mandatory. The universe will reward you for taking care of you. You watch, you'll get given more and more, and then I'm getting so passionate, and then you think, because then you'll be more grateful about what's going on in your life, and you'll be, thank you. And the more gratitude you hand out, the walking I do at 5:30 every morning in the dark is about the gratitude I have for the sunrise and the grass and the trees and the shower and the whatever's going on. Just gratitude, total gratitude. The more grateful we are, the more we'll attract, because we get it that all of a sudden we don't have to do this on our own. Universe didn't mean for you to go to school and learn that we have to do it on our own. It's such a big limiting belief. Next, let it go. Outsourcing. Here we are, 3 people outsourcing in different parts of the world our respective knowledge to make a program for you to learn this amazing education from, so that even if one of you changes today or makes changes, we didn't change you. Just get to know that. We just instigated it. You're the one that's going to make the change. You're going to decide right here and now to change. You're going to believe that you can. You're going to act on it, and then you're going to expect it. And that's the key. You're going to expect this new result that you want for you. And I'm just going to encourage you. I'm just going to go get it, because we've done it. And so it's not like we read it in a book and now we're teaching you how to do it. We've lived it. We've done it. We've done the hard yards. We got the illness. We nearly died. We've, done all the hard work where we, we were worn out. And then we've got it, and somebody taught us. And now we're here wanting to teach you and wanting to share this so that you can be that better version of you.
Thanks so much. Holly, I'll give you the last opportunity here. We are at the time, but is there something else that you wanted to inquire about?
Thank you, then. Thank you so much, Lynda, for everything you shared with us and our listeners tonight. It was such a pleasure getting to know you a little bit and getting to chat with you and hearing all of your stories and your wisdom. There's such a rich wealth of knowledge you have, and your well runs very deep. So thank you so much for sharing that with us tonight. I really appreciate you.
It's my absolute pleasure, and I'm just so honored for the two of you to involve me. Thank you.
Yes, and I'll just say, Lynda, it is always wonderful to spend this type of time with you and just to be in this energy. I'm always lifted. The only problem I foresee, you have a day ahead of you because you're Wednesday morning, and Holly and I, we both have to try to go to sleep. So good luck with that one.
Always buzzing on Tuesdays, but this night's extra special. I feel like I just want to cry. Like, I'm just so excited about your passion, Lynda. Like, I'm gonna go home, I am home. I'm gonna go sit in my tub after and just sob like happy tears and go to sleep.
Thanks so much again, Lynda. Holly, thank you.
Thank you, Lynda.
Absolute pleasure, girls. Absolute pleasure. You're doing a great job. I applaud you.
Thank you. Good night, and thanks again for everybody who listens and watches Pray Love. We appreciate you, and we're grateful that you're part of our circle.
Good night.